Mad as a bag of spiders. This is one way to describe the raiders inside here, HalluciGen. And, come to think of it, the former employees as well. This building is another fine example of why the world went to shit. Inside we will find many dangerous experiments, and crowd control devices that start riots. It is located south of the Charles View Amphitheater, and this is a scene that unfolds, just as we enter. Complete bucking madness, though not an altogether unpleasant sight, as raiders killing each other is frankly lovely to watch. They're attacking both us and themselves, and babble out utter nonsense every now and then, though we shall take a look at a fine example of that later. A strange green gas fills the entire building, and a voice can be heard repeatedly saying that there has been a chemical leak. So the question now is, what is leaked? Also, the place is fucked, and the first thing in the reception area we shall look at is this: drugged water. Now, I'm not sure if it was drugged because the gas got into it, or if it was drugged before, in which case this place seems mighty shifty. We'll just have to wait and see. Next, we find a help wanted notice on the desk. So let's take a gander, shall we? They want to test non-lethal technology on human subjects, and they require no higher qualifications. Now, it doesn't seem too bad, but remember, we're only in the door, and already there's a chemical leak and drugged water. Also, as we will soon discover, non-lethal does not mean human-friendly at all. Next are the terminal entries. So there's a chemical leak and all the executive staff must be out of the building before anyone else can leave. The first entry is, well, it shows just how ridiculous this place is. The first line makes me think that a client must have been subjected to stuff accidentally at some point. The next line tells us the truth of the water. It was given to the subjects to sedate them, most likely to make testing easier. Then the 3 forms will be filled out, most likely depending on whether the subject resisted, was injured, or died. The last entry details what happens during an emergency. As we have already seen, the executives were evacuated first. The lab manager got to decide whether they should try and rescue people or not, though I'm going to go out on a limb and say they probably chose not quite often. I assume the next line is referring to admin staff, and not the damn clergymen. The building's air recycling system will clean the place out in a few days to weeks, so we can assume this is recent, perhaps something to do with the gunners. Now onward and downward, as the place has collapsed quite a bit. You will encounter a lot more deranged gunners from here on out as well. The locker area is empty of just about anything interesting, and the smashed in bathroom wall is what leads us deeper into the building. Also, do not fire your gun in this room, you will be set on fire and roasted. Now, this next room is interesting as the terminal has some info and a cool weapon we can use. So first of all, we can view the current prototype, called the Suppressor. It seems to utilize non-lethal electrical discharges to incapacitate its victims. That's important, remember that. The non-lethal part. The next entry gives us several lab reports. The first is on the HalluciGen Gas, the culprit of all the chaos in this building. So it was meant to pacify people in a riot, and was deployed as a grenade. Almost half were injured and everyone's adrenal glands ruptured and caused them to go crazy. 4 of them killed each other in the resulting brawl, and 1 died due to a heart attack. Apparently, to cover a large area, the concentration will always mindfuck people. How joyous. Next is the Eradicator. It seems to be a decontamination unit of some description, and managed to destroy almost all of the contaminants, and kill all the subjects. Also, apparently it failed at its goal of being a decontaminant, due to being too fat. It will be a weapon instead. Next, we can activate the suppressor. It will shock any raiders in the room and render them immobile, though only for a time, which is weird when we read the next entries on this device deeper inside this facility. A copy of Tesla can be found beside it. Just a wee joke. In the next section, a lot of gunners are killing each other, and some lock themselves in a room. Also, watch out for these protectrons. The big blue bastard exploded and killed me at least 3 times in a row. Fucking scumbag. Up ahead you come to this little room with a painting. It's not a dead end. You can walk through this painting. Bethesda were just being arseholes. And if it fooled you, don't feel silly. It fooled me as well. However, it's not up here that we shall go, but round to the master locked door outside, and we can gain access through the basement. Now down here we fight an invisible gunner, but more on him in a second. First of all, based on all of the destroyed HalluciGen gas containers, it's clear this is where the leak occurred, and based on the gunners' bodies, they must have been the cause of the leak, the same one that led to their psychosis and deaths, though I have no clue how they managed to break so many. If we check his body, we get 2 notes. The first is after the gas has been released. The way it's written, it sounds like the gas was already released in the labs when they opened the doors, but I could be wrong. He then had to kill his friends, as they went apeshit. He sealed the doors to stop any more getting out, but it clearly didn't work. He then talks about the voices. Now, I am not suggesting this is supernatural. It has been stated that they were hallucinating, but it's still pretty creepy. The next note were their instructions on the building. A classified client asked them to break in and locate the Invisiwave and Eradicator, then leave quickly, which is clearly not what happened at all. It's funny because the Eradicator was a fat bastard and weighed over 2 tons, so there was no way they were going to get that out anyway. The Invisiwave could have been what the gunner was using, but as we will read in the terminals, it's unlikely. Several intact canisters can be found around the lab if you want to take some. They are useful as a weapon, and thank God the gas does not affect us, as we are the protagonist. Now, onto the terminal. The first one is one of the contracted weapons, the Invisiwave, and it's a load of snake oil. Like many things here, they appear to have fooled investors with some mirrors and a stealth boy, and now they are frigged, as the investors want 200 units, though it serves them right. The next one is on the Eradicator, so it worked and then disintegrated the test subject, though it was meant to be handheld, so the whole 2-ton thing is, ever so slightly, a deal breaker. At least they got the VIPs out before they saw a person murdered. The Dispersant is next. It revealed the truth to a certain person. Their child was grotesque, and they ran away. 2 days later, they were caught and institutionalized. Its goal was to stop riots, and like the gas, simply did not work. The person in charge seems to have been fired shortly after this. The gas itself is next, and this version did not give the 5th person a heart attack, though they were beaten to death by the other 4 shortly after. They now want to market it as a weapon, as it has no place as a riot control device. Last is the non-lethal suppressor, though it does paralyze people. So I suppose in a way it does the job, albeit permanently. Also, apparently it was made by the same person who created the Mesmetron, popular weapon of slavers in Fallout 3. Also, they had their own prototype to work on and still couldn't get the suppressor to function properly. What a fucking failure. So the Invisiwave was unlikely to have been deployed by the gunner, and based on the stealth boy in the safe, that is probably what they used. Whether the gas was already released or not, I'm not sure. In here is the Eradicator, that doses you with radiation and killed all these poor gunners. You can activate the decontamination from this terminal, or you can just go through the walls. Afterwards, we can head into this room to the left, where we find a dead gunner and a minigun with a shredder attached to it. Also, I think they drank a shitload of Nuka-Cola and were trying to hack the mainframe. We too can hack it and reset all the master passwords in the building, which comes in handy. In this stairwell around here, we can find the only insane person among the gunners, who can be heard screaming and crying from most parts of the building. He babbles about a lot of things such as kitties and bugs. Lots of bugs. It's like he's having a manic episode mixed with a panic attack and a bad acid trip. Let's watch.
Excuse me.
Can't breathe. Bugs, 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 bugs. Get away! Get away! You aren't real. You aren't real. Here, kitty, kitty, kitty. Get away! Get away!
Yup. So far off the deep end, he's no longer in the swimming pool. Now we head upstairs, and we can get access to the demonstration area, where they showed off all their snake oil inventions to investors. So first off, the terminal. There's only one entry, detailing how they do demonstrations. If something breaks, distract investors with something shiny, and if Big Bertha, the Eradicator, is demonstrated, get the VIPs out, clean up the corpses and fix the test chamber. Now, if we look around the edges of this room, we can actually get a demonstration of all the lovely inventions.
HalluciGen's Eradicator provides your forces with a state-of-the-art field decontamination solution. Small amounts of residual radiation may persist in the affected area. Dosage subject to change pending safety evaluations. Criminal scum? Don't get a gun. Try HalluciGen Suppressor, a safe, reliable, and effective way to paralyze even armored targets. Side effects may include the partial and/or complete paralysis of the user, bystanders, small animals, and/or large animals. Discretion is advised.
Has been detected. Please evacuate the building.
HalluciGen Gas, reliable crowd control since 2055. HalluciGen Gas can stop a riot faster than any other product on the market, and without the messy side effects of our competitors' offerings. Use with caution. Unpredictable sensory experiences may result. Subjects exposed to high dosages may suffer catastrophic adrenal failure. HalluciGen's Dispersant is ideal for peacefully clearing an area of civilians. HalluciGen is not responsible for any damage, injury, or loss of life sustained in mass panics that may or may not result from the use of Dispersant.
So as we can see, all these devices were being peddled to investors, which is just baffling. The Eradicator, most of all, was clearly never going to find any form of use beyond a death room, and we don't need to get that dark. The suppressor, once again, can be used to disable any raiders, though I want to point out that it does not paralyze them like we were told, which is false advertising. I wanted to take their bodies from them, and leave them trapped inside, screaming. The gas is clearly responsible for 99% of the shenanigans here, and as a weapon would be great, though as riot control, well, it'd be funny at least. Also, I think the guy coming down really hard near the stairs might have come under the influence of the disperser. I mean, he isn't violent, just terrified and babbling, which seems more in line of what we learned in the terminal entry on the disperser than what we know about the gas. Of course, he could just be in the small minority that the gas does not turn insane when they're exposed to it. Next, we enter another office space that has too gone to shit. Terminal can be found in this room that gives us some insight into how the financials of the company were doing, just before the bombs hit. The first draft was not for the public eye, nor was the second, and reported that they lost 1.8 billion in the first quarter. Shit one. We also learned of the CEO's name, Eric Rice, and he says he knows they're doing badly, but that he hopes all of their fake products will make them money. The second draft is the opposite of this one. It says they have made a profit of 1.1 billion, and that their long-term contracts and the declining state of the world will keep them rolling in it for years to come. Now, these two entries are in direct opposition to one another, so which one is true and which one is false? Well, we have to look at the note completely obscured under a pile of debris to get that answer. So the note from Eric, the CEO, shows us the second draft is a lie. He asked someone called Paul to make their financials look good. I'm assuming Paul's in charge of this sort of thing, and Damien, based on the first name, is the one who put all the footnotes on the product entries. Now, Lord in heaven knows how Paul managed to make anything shine with the amount of shit Damien and his lot were throwing around. But based on the second draft, he somehow managed it. All that is left is to head upstairs to Eric's office and take a look around this scummy CEO's dwellings. It's actually pretty standard. He seems to have had a secretary and a door opened off into something, maybe a walkway above the accounting part. His terminal only contains the one entry. He clearly met Paul and then realised how bad the financials were, then left the note for him to sort it out, so there would be no trace on the PC. Damien, as I said, seems to have been the head of R&D. He then had a meeting with Dr. Everill, I assume about their gruesome practices, and he ponders giving them water, the drugged one, I assume, perhaps to use them as a subject themselves. The part about Scythe will come into play in later episodes, but all you need to know right now is that it was a program run by the military. They were bidding for the contract, though they may not have gotten it. Also, I know it's dated the 25th, it's obviously a mistake since the bombs dropped 2 days prior. So this was HalluciGen, a non-lethal, bollocks, weapons development company. They procured subjects by advertising it, then giving them drugged water so they could use them however they wanted. They had 5 products that we know of. The Invisiwave was a mix of mirrors and stealth boys and bullshit, and never worked. The Eradicator was used to destroy contaminants with radiation, and was perfectly handheld, if you were a giant. These are the two the gunners were after. The Suppressor was a non-lethal means to incapacitate people, though it did so through paralysis, which was possibly permanent? The Disperser seems to induce mass fear and hysteria in its subjects, causing them to be incarcerated, and so was obviously useless as a riot control weapon, though it would have been great at starting them. It also may have affected that poor gunner lad. Lastly was the HalluciGen Gas, which ruptured the adrenal glands of 4 of 5 affected with it, causing hallucinations, and generally drove them insane and homicidal. The gunners did not know about it, and when they arrived, they caused it to spread. Whether it was already broken when they got here, or they broke it, I'm not sure. However, it got out and drove them all stark raving mad. Though not as mad as the people that worked here. People, by the way, who I am convinced were trying to beat Vault-Tec in stupidity by making as many lethal, non-lethal weapons as they possibly could. A deadly gas, insane gunners, and the most pointless pre-war weaponry we have yet to find. I hope you enjoyed our look at it. If you did like it, give the video a like, and if you want regular updates, subscribe. Any suggestions for lore or future videos should be left in the comments below. Better yet, go on to my subreddit so we can discuss them in more detail. It's linked in the description. If you wish to, you can support me on Patreon, which is also linked in the description. Go have a gander at the rewards. Follow me on Twitter or Facebook to get regular updates, or have a wee chat. Any business you wish to discuss, email me at thenthapple.business@gmail.com, and I will get back to you as soon as possible. I hope you enjoyed the episode, and I hope to see you in the next one. And until then, goodbye.